friendly matches. Castleford 14, Wakefield 14. Leeds 32, Bradford 20. Wigan 30, St Helens 16. And finally, the Northern Forward Premiership Rugby League. Barrow 31, Whitehaven 4. Batley 8, Dewsbury 18. Lee 24, Widnes 16. Workington Town 10, Swinton 21. York 1, Doncaster 36.
There's the late kick-off boards. Just to say that's the result now. Crewe 1, Huddersfield 1. So Manchester City top of the nationwide Division 1 this evening. Still playing the other games. Darlington at Hull and Plymouth against Torquay. That's just about it. Match of the day tonight, 11 o'clock. Final score on the 28th. See you then. Enjoy Boxing Day. Bye.
راجع كازابلانكا أبطال أندية القارة الإفريقية النصر أبطال كأس الكؤوس نحن عروس آسيا.
The best team from the continent knows loads about beating the world, mate.
And they're all coming face to face with the biggest club in the world.
Manchester United in the World Club Championship, live from Brazil this January on BBC One, BBC Choice and Radio 5 Live.
Catch up with the Christmas vets in practice on BBC One in 15 minutes. First, the Boxing Day BBC News with Hugh Edwards.
Another hostage is freed by the hijackers in Afghanistan. But there are still 160 people held captive on the plane. The bad weather crosses over northern Europe. At least 20 have now died. A tricky start, but England then make good progress in the third test in South Africa. Good evening. 160 people are facing a third night as hostages on a plane in Afghanistan. Earlier today, another passenger was freed by the hijackers. They're demanding the release of some Kashmiri separatists from jail in India. The plane, owned by Indian Airlines, is at Kandahar Airport in southern Afghanistan. It was hijacked on its way to Delhi from Kathmandu on Friday.
In Delhi, anger is growing among the relatives of those still held captive. They want to know what the Indian government is doing to resolve the crisis, and so far they're not happy with the answers being given by ministers. Among those calling for action is the wife of the plane's co-pilot.
What I say, I'm very much annoyed with the government still right now. I just can't express my feelings about my husband. And wherever he is, he has to be safe. He has to be secured. He has to be happy. He has to come back safely.
The 5 hijackers are demanding the release of a Muslim religious leader who supports a militant campaign to create an Islamic state in Kashmir. At the request of the Indian government, a team from the United Nations has now flown in to help. But it's being stressed that their role is purely humanitarian. They're not there to negotiate. The passengers released by the hijackers in Dubai arrived back at Delhi airport as waiting relatives clamoured for news. This man said he'd been tied up, blindfolded and stabbed. The funeral of the one man known to have been killed by the hijackers has taken place amid emotional scenes that further underline the public pressure on the Indian government to secure the release of the remaining hostages. And in the past few minutes, the BBC has received the first pictures of the hijacked aircraft on the tarmac at Kandahar Airport in Afghanistan. The plane is reported to have been refueled, but it's not clear what will happen next. Peter Gould, BBC News.
The Russians say they've reached the center of Grozny, the capital of Chechnya. There's fierce fighting in the streets as rebels try to defend the city, where thousands of civilians remain trapped. The Russians say they've taken the strategically important Minutka Square. They've managed to cut off groups of rebels.
Slowly but surely, the Russian army is edging forwards. Day 2 of the all-out assault on Grozny, and the shelling is incessant. The artillery barrage is targeted on known pockets of rebel resistance. The soldiers move in only once a specific area of the Chechen capital has been pounded. The approaches to the city have been heavily mined, though. Clearing them is a time-consuming business, hampering the Russian advance. Convoys of trucks carry ammunition to the front, We saw vehicle after vehicle on the road today. This is a massive operation. As many as 40,000 civilians in Grozny are now facing serious risks. The months of shelling were bad enough, but this could be far worse. As people shelter in cellars, a Russian minister and a Chechen official have held talks to see what can be done. But any evacuation would require a ceasefire, and that's unlikely to happen. Prayers ring out across Grozny as the Islamic rebels prepare to go into combat. They're inflicting severe losses on the Russian army, determined to keep their dream of independence alive. A captured Russian soldier is paraded before the cameras. The rebels are far from beaten yet. More reinforcements are heading towards the front line. Russia is sending all the units it can muster into what's becoming a very bloody battle. Jonathan Charles, BBC News, on the Chechen border.
The bad weather that's caused so many problems over the past few days is now affecting France, Switzerland and Germany. Several people have been killed by falling trees and the gale force winds. All train services out of Paris were cancelled. The city's two main airports were closed.
These were the scenes in Paris on Boxing Day morning. The French capital is now clearing up after its worst storms on record. Airports and railway stations had to be closed, thousands of homes were damaged and many families are still without power. A number of people have been killed by falling trees and collapsed buildings, and many others have been injured. Boxing Day attractions like this circus in Paris were cancelled. Many streets will be blocked for some time, and thousands of travellers have had their Christmas holidays disrupted. The gale force winds have swept across many parts of Europe. Police in Switzerland say people have been killed by falling trees while out walking. Winds of up to 96 miles an hour blowing across Lake Le Mans in Vevey have destroyed thousands of pounds worth of property, and power lines have been brought down. The storms have also caused havoc across Germany. A number of people died after their cars were crushed by trees. Here too, thousands of homes are without electricity, and police say many buildings have been badly damaged. Forecasters say there will be more storms across Europe tonight. Jane Evans, BBC News.
And there's still a red alert on many rivers in central and southern England after 2 days of severe weather. In the southwest, many families and businesses have been clearing up their properties, but hundreds of homes are still threatened by further flooding. More heavy rain and winds are forecast. Neil Hamilton, who lost his libel action against the owner of Harrods, Mohammed Al-Fayed, says he'll take legal advice on appealing against the verdict. Defeat has left the former Conservative minister with legal bills of up to £2 million. He faces financial ruin. Mr. Hamilton says he's confident he can raise the money he needs to appeal. Now, Michael Atherton was out for just one run, but it did turn out to be a pretty good day after that for England's batsmen. They made steady progress against South Africa in the third test in Durban, reaching 135 for 2 at close of play.
This could well prove to be the pivotal match of the series, and with England deciding to bat first, Mark Butcher needed a healthy slice of luck in Alan Donald's first over, when Paul Adams failed to hold on to a difficult chance. But with the score on 7, Michael Atherton fell to the exceptional pace of Nanti Hayward, the 4th time in these test matches that the former England captain has been bowled. Nasser Hussain, having won the toss for his side, initially went on the attack, striking one of the few boundaries of the entire day. Butcher, without a half-century in his last 19 test innings, eventually got going himself, but the scoring rate remained painfully slow. Then, just 2 runs short of his 50, a spectacular diving catch by Lance Klusner accounted for Butcher after he miscued a shot off Adams. Darren Maddy, in for the injured Michael Vaughan, was fortunate to survive at the start of his innings when Darryl Cullinan dropped a chance at slip. Hussain went on to reach his 50 with the shot of the day, but he spent 295 minutes at the crease in doing so. When the players left the field early through bad light, the England batsmen were jeered by a frustrated Durban crowd. But at least England have laid a solid foundation for what should be a substantial score. Paul Newman, BBC News.
And that's it for now. Peter Sissons will be here with the late news at 11:15. But for me, enjoy the rest of the evening. Bye for now.
Good evening to you. The bookies might be calling this Christmas a white one. Far aptly, I think, more described as a wet and a windy one, because we still have some very wet weather in the south. I think most of the showers across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland are falling as sleet and snow, but the rain in the south causing further problems. Little area of low pressure just in the eastern side of the channel right now, giving some very strong winds, and more of these showers brewing up in the west, and many of them will be heavy and give some sleet in places as well. Now, the big problem we have tonight is as the skies begin to clear, we could have some quite nasty icy patches to watch out for, with those temperatures ranging from around +2 or +3 on the coast to as low as -2 in certain areas. So quite a sharp frost, and as I mentioned, some icy patches to watch out for. More snow showers to come for Wales, Northern England, Northern Ireland and Scotland through the night and through tomorrow as well. Tomorrow's forecast, well, some sunshine around. I think there'll be some quite bright weather in the more eastern areas, with the northwesterly wind will feed in plenty of showers, and it won't be very warm. Top temperatures around 6 or 7, the showers perhaps getting more organised, giving more persistent rain in the southwest.
Nelson Mandela is building his dream house in the village where he grew up.
But what he doesn't know is we're in beautiful South Africa.
To give his garden the ground force treatment. His wife's in on it.
When he was in prison, he tried to have a garden.
His friends are in on it. From childhood, he was interested in gardening.
And we've got to come up with a garden fit for one of the greatest leaders of the 20th century.
Ground Force Mandela Special goes to South Africa next Sunday at 8:15 on BBC One.
Paddling. A time like this.
Bank Holiday Tuesday on BBC One. A big day in Ballycay.
Double vodka and white for me and the girls, and then we're off to Lorenzo.
And Kathleen has one too many.
Just put the cone down. Don't throw your weight around with me, copper.
And in Jonathan Creek at 9, it's not who, it's how.
I've seen my share of spells and sorcery, but nothing quite like this.
As a freak accident turns into something more sinister.
What have we here?
Don't miss the drama. Bank Holiday Tuesday from 8 on BBC One.
This is BBC One.
Hello, good afternoon. A clean-up operation is underway in Kent, where thousands of homes and businesses have been affected by floods. Over 100 families are still without electricity after storms on Christmas Eve brought down power lines. A power failure has also led to severe disruption on the London Underground.
We'll start this way.
For the Card family, this Christmas has been a disaster. The torrential rain on Christmas Eve left them with over 2 feet of water in their home, which they've been trying to clear up ever since.
It's totally ruined Christmas. We cancelled it for this year now. Everyone's presents got ruined, like carpet's gone. Just totally ruined it really now.
The Card family were just one of nearly 500 homes in Five Oak Green in Kent flooded after the River Medway burst its banks. The storms also brought down power cables, leaving 12,000 people in the county without electricity. Most have now been reconnected, but over 100 are still waiting. In London, passengers on the Underground experienced delays earlier today when a power failure caused by storm debris brought parts of it to a standstill. The Environment Agency say the worst is now over, but that's little consolation for the Card family, who've had to put their Christmas celebrations on hold. Catherine Bennett, Newsroom South East in Kent.
A murder inquiry has been launched after a man was stabbed to death in central London in the early hours of Christmas Day. A 19-year-old Asian man was assaulted in Charles II Street. He was found nearby Duke of York Street and died in hospital. The victim was involved in an earlier altercation with a group of Asian youths, but it's not known whether the two incidents are linked. On to the Boxing Day football results now, and Spurs beat Watford 4-0 in their Premier League match at White Hart Lane. Watford are now without a win in 14 games. Chelsea got back on the winners' list with a 2-1 away win over Southampton. In the London derby, Wimbledon and West Ham drew 2-2, Neil Ardley grabbing a late equaliser for the Dons. And Arsenal's match at Coventry kicks off in a few minutes. Elsewhere in Division 1, Fulham held high-flying Ipswich to a 0-0 draw at Craven Cottage. Charlton beat Crystal Palace, Brentford beat Bristol City in Division 2, and also in Division 2 a 2-1 victory for Gillingham over Colchester. But Reading didn't do so well, going down 1-0 away to Cardiff. Whilst in Division 3, leaders Barnet conceded a late equaliser in their 1-1 draw with Brighton. Well, those are the main news and sports stories in the southeast tonight. We're back tomorrow at 10 to 1 here on BBC One. But for now, have a very good Boxing Day evening. Bye-bye.
Join BBC One this New Year's Eve as 2000 Today takes you around the world and into the new millennium.
Right. So who's for a pint? Half litre? Love a pickled herring.
But at 5:30, will they be cracking open the champagne in Albert Square?
They'll be fine.
I don't want fine, I want it to be perfect. At 7:05.
Join us for the grand final of 2000 to 1.
And at 8, it's back to the main question.
What from making a terrible mistake?
At 9:25, Texas and Barbara Windsor join Dale Winter.
You are really spoiling us.
And then join David Attenborough, Michael Burke, the two Ronnies, Vic and Bob, Michael Palin and Lenny Henry as the stars come out across the universe. In Greenwich, Jamie Theakston plays host to the Eurythmics, Simply Red and Martin McCutcheon. And at 12:35, Dale's back. A night like no other.
I don't know what all this fuss is about.
Join BBC One as 2000 Today welcomes you to the new millennium.
An hour of animals now on BBC One. At 5 to 6, Rolf is with the RSPCA. And first we join the vets in practice at Christmas.
Christmas is just a few days away, and all around the country the young vets are busy with last-minute preparations. In Cheltenham, Emma and Joe are getting ready for their first Christmas together as a married couple. In Lancaster, Steve's planning a few family surprises.